Good evening. I'm here with Dr. Samuel Prater, an emergency room physician at Memorial Hermann. Thank you for being here, Dr. Prater. As well as Jason Ryan, the VP of Regulatory Services and Governmental Affairs at Centerpoint. Chief Christensen, our fire marshal, Jeff Linder, a meteorologist. I'll speak then in Spanish, then they will speak, and we'll all answer questions. The bottom line this evening is we're in for another long night. Our primary concern right now continues to be power. The state ERCOT power outages are hitting us so hard. I know what a nightmare it is for so many people. What a nightmare it is to be without power. It's not just cold, it's bitter cold, it's unbelievably miserable. I can tell you a lot of folks here have family in that situation. Same goes for my family and my loved ones. So it's very tough. The good news is there were 70,000 outages caused by weather in our region for Centerpoint. And now that number is down to 30,000. So they've been able to get those weather-caused outages repaired. And Jason will speak to this in a bit. The bad news is there continue to be 1.2 million customers without power due to the forced state ERCOT outages. That's roughly the same as yesterday, and that number has shifted a little bit. Centerpoint tells us they're open for business, they just need the product being that electricity. Right now, I'm focused on working with the state and federal level. I've fielded many calls from counterparts at the federal level, at the state level, collaborating, pushing for ERCOT to bring energy generation back up online so that we can get people the electricity they need, and I'm confident that folks are working on that. We've been hit hard by nature this week, but we can't deny that some of this is a man-made disaster as well. And the 5 million residents of this county and really this region and this state will deserve answers from ERCOT and the state once this is over. We will push for that answer once this is over, but right now we have to focus on working together. In the meantime, I do say this both for myself and for every resident of this county. We need some clarity. I'm talking to counterparts across the state, and we're being told the generators are coming online only to be told more homes are losing power. ERCOT needs to stop being overly optimistic and give us the clarity of what the outlook really looks like. Not because I don't want to have optimism, but because I don't want to create false hopes. Every night since this started, we've seen less generation, not more. So let me give it to you straight, based on the visibility I have. Whether you have power or not right now, there's a possibility of power outages even beyond the length of this weather. There's a generation shortfall right now, and it's a matter of when ERCOT is going to get that power up and running. So until we begin to see that their optimistic estimates actually pan out on more people, not fewer people without power, we have to assume the worst. Let me take a minute to raise the alarm about carbon monoxide poisoning. And that's why Dr. Prater is here as well. Chief Christensen can speak to that. It is an incredibly crucial issue right now. It's heartbreaking. We've seen a flood of calls coming in reporting carbon monoxide poisoning. There have been at least 300 calls, whether that is to our fire marshal, the hospitals, the other jurisdictions. Those are the ones we know of. But these leaders tell me that the sense is that's just the tip of the iceberg. There's been at least 2 fatalities. A woman and her 8-year-old daughter this morning died due to carbon monoxide poisoning. And the truth of the matter is this carbon monoxide poisoning is in many ways a disaster within a disaster. Please protect yourself and your family. Keep them safe. Much of these poisoning calls, the deaths, they're due to bringing grills into the house, turning cars on in garages, basically using outdoor equipment inside. You can use that equipment to stay warm, just don't use it in your home. Keep it away from your home. Water is another hazard we're dealing with, so I'm going to talk about that briefly. The effect of frozen pipes and weather impacts are having an effect on water pressure. Check with your local utility district to see if there's a boiled water notice. We're getting reports at varying times. If you still have water, remember to preserve some. Don't be one of the folks that I've talked to recently who say, you know, I knew I was supposed to fill the bathtub, but I didn't get around to it, and now I don't have water. Make sure you preserve the water right now while you have it. Very quickly on the road safety. Roads are getting more dangerous again by the minute. What melted today is turning into ice again. If you are not home, get home and stay there. To be clear, the roads will continue to be dangerous into tomorrow. So don't plan to get up in the morning and get moving. We're going to have to wait until into the day, and we'll keep folks informed. We know that people did well over the past couple of days. The first responders continue to be surprised at the relatively low number of accidents. We only had 15 new major accidents, 15 reported to the sheriff's office today as of the latest report, which is actually a relatively small number given the size of our county. So let's keep it that way. I'll briefly touch on some of the activities we're engaging in. Of course, keeping up the warming shelters, helping coordinate across the different warming shelters, not just the county, but the city, other nonprofit organizations and folks who are trying to help. County facilities and buildings will be closed Wednesday and Thursday. On vaccinations, Harris County Public Health will contact folks on our wait list once they're able to administer vaccines safely again. They may be able to start administering some second doses and testing on Friday, but folks are already, will be contacted. Anybody who is contacted that can't make it will have an opportunity to reschedule once the weather passes and the power issues pass. So folks who've been selected out of the wait list don't have to worry that they're gonna be put back into it. We're gonna work through that, and our systems are set up for it. We're continuing to coordinate with our partners, be it from the grocery stores, be it from the state, law enforcement, the various jurisdictions within and surrounding Harris County, our congressional and state delegations. We're going to continue working together and looking out for any of these crises within the crisis. I know things look bleak, and we're going to be in for a long week. It's been a long week already. Many people are exhausted, but we'll get there. We're expecting some beautiful Southeast Texas weather this weekend into next week, so we've got that to look forward to, and we're going to continue working together to get through this. I just ask that you continue to protect yourself and your family by taking that personal responsibility when you're home. Careful with the carbon monoxide poisoning, and of course, please don't be out and about driving right now. I will mention one more point. Is fires. We've seen some reports of fires, fire alarms going off. It is a many-fold increase in the fire alarm calls that we receive on a blue sky day, on a normal day. These fires many times are caused by the impacts of the power outage. So the recommendation to the community is simply pay attention to those fire alarms. Don't just let it go off. Remember, you need to evacuate and make sure that it's okay, because we are seeing a lot more reports than we normally do. So I'll close with that. Let's stay on it. We're pushing for this power to come back on from the state ERCOT system. We're working here. We'll be here all night again. You've got very committed first responders looking out for you, and we've got a tough and resilient community. So we'll keep getting through this. We'll hear, or actually, let me repeat my remarks in Spanish, and then we'll hear from Dr. Prater and Mr. Ryan. Vamos a tener otra noche muy larga esta noche en el condado Harris y realmente a través de la región. Nuestra principal preocupación en este momento continúa siendo la electricidad. Los apagones del sistema ERCOT estatal nos están impactando horriblemente. Sabemos que es una pesadilla estar en casa en este momento sin energía. Sabemos que está haciendo no solo frío, sino un frío intenso, y es increíblemente terrible. Muchos de los trabajadores aquí tienen familia que están pasando por esta situación. Mi propia familia está pasando por esta situación. Es un reto que nos tiene a todos muy preocupados, muy estresados con ese frío, pero hay que seguir luchando. Las buenas noticias es que habían más de 70,000 apagones causados por el clima el día de ayer, y de esos ahora solamente quedan 30,000. Entonces, Centerpoint está trabajando para corregir, traer nuevamente la energía, la luz a esas áreas que se les ha ido la luz, no por la orden del Estado, sino porque se haya caído una estructura de luz. Las malas noticias es que aún hay 1.2 millones de hogares sin energía debido a las órdenes de la agencia estatal de ERCOT, que les está pidiendo a Centerpoint que quite esa energía para poder mantener la estabilidad de la red eléctrica estatal. Ese número es alrededor de la misma cantidad del día de ayer. Centerpoint nos dice que ellos están listos para trabajar, tienen el equipo para distribuir esa energía, solo necesitan el producto, necesitan la energía por parte del Estado. En este momento estoy enfocada, trabajando con el Estado, el gobierno federal, colaborando para empujar a ERCOT que incremente la generación de esa energía para que podamos darle la electricidad a nuestra población. Esto ha sido un desastre por causas naturales de la madre naturaleza, pero también hay que admitir que también es un desastre causado por el hombre. Todos los 5 millones de habitantes de este condado y realmente de la región y del estado merecen una respuesta por parte de ERCOT y el estado en cuanto esto termine. Pero por ahora tenemos que seguir trabajando con ellos y empujarlos a que continúen con esa generación eléctrica. Por ahora sí quiero decir algo, tanto por mi cuenta como por los residentes del condado Harris. Merecemos transparencia. He hablado con colegas a través del estado y nos ha dicho ERCOT que hay más generadores. Ayer y hoy han dicho que se están activando nuevas plantas que generan electricidad. Pero a la vez les están pidiendo a Centerpoint y a las otras instituciones como ellos que tienen que seguir cortando la electricidad. ERCOT necesita dejar de ser demasiado optimista. No porque yo no quiera que haya optimismo, sino porque no quiero crear falsas esperanzas. Necesito, yo, ustedes, todos necesitamos saber exactamente cuál es la predicción en cuanto a qué va a suceder con la energía y cuándo va a regresar. Cada noche, desde que ha empezado esta crisis, hemos visto menos producción de energía, no más. Entonces, para ser claros, tenga o no electricidad en este momento, hay una posibilidad de más apagones aún más allá de este clima. Es una posibilidad. Hay un límite en este momento de la generación, de la producción de la energía, y realmente se trata de cuándo ERCOT va a poder acelerar esa producción y producir suficiente suministro para toda nuestra región y para todo el estado. Y yo no tengo la seguridad de que lo vayan a hacer ni hoy ni mañana. Voy a hablar por un minuto acerca de la intoxicación por monóxido de carbono. Estamos viendo muchísimas llamadas reportando intoxicaciones por monóxido de carbono. Han habido mínimo 300 llamadas a nuestra oficina de bomberos, a los hospitales, los otros departamentos de bomberos, y me dicen estos líderes de los departamentos de bomberos y de los hospitales que esas 300 llamadas son solamente una fracción del total de intoxicaciones que están viendo. Ha habido al menos 2 muertes, una mujer y su hija de 8 años, quienes murieron por intoxicación de monóxido de carbono. Esa intoxicación es un desastre dentro del desastre esta semana. Entonces les pido que protejan a usted y a su familia. Esto está sucediendo porque hay familias que están trayendo parrillas adentro del hogar, que están encendiendo los automóviles en el garaje, que están utilizando otro equipo que pertenece afuera, adentro. Está haciendo frío. Obviamente tiene sentido que utilice su parrilla, que utilice su automóvil. lo que tenga. Pero si es equipo que debe estar afuera, no lo meta a la casa, no lo meta a su hogar. Este monóxido de carbono no tiene olor, no es visible. Esta mujer que murió hablando por teléfono, se desmayó sin darse cuenta. Entonces, por favor, protéjanse, utilice esas parrillas, esos instrumentos afuera, no adentro. Otro problema es el agua. Están las tuberías congeladas, hay impactos del clima en el sistema del agua, entonces hay baja presión. Llame a su distrito, contacte a su distrito de agua para ver si hay alguna notificación de hervir el agua. Estamos recibiendo ciertos reportajes aquí, pero realmente cambian consistentemente, entonces lo mejor que puede hacer es estar en contacto directamente con su proveedor de agua. Lo que puede hacer de una vez es, si todavía tiene agua, por favor presérvela. No sea la persona que se le olvidó llenar la bañera y ahora se quedó sin agua. Llénela de una vez, asegúrese que tenga suficiente agua. Muy rápido, brevemente, acerca de las carreteras. Las carreteras siguen poniéndose más y más peligrosas a medida que pasa el tiempo y cae la noche. El hielo que se derritió hoy otra vez se está convirtiendo en hielo. Si no está en casa en este momento, vaya a casa y quédese ahí, vaya donde va a estar esta noche. Para ser muy claros, las calles van a estar peligrosas mañana también, entonces no planee el poder levantarse en la mañana y conducir. Mañana en la mañana igual pedimos que todos se queden donde están, porque se va a ver todo transparente, no se va a ver la nieve, pero va a haber una capa de hielo. Nuestro departamento del alguacil ha reportado solo 15 accidentes mayores, lo cual es un número pequeño, 15 más de los que teníamos ayer, es un número relativamente pequeño, entonces lo estamos haciendo bien. Sigamos así para no sumar esos accidentes a la lista de retos que ya tenemos. En cuanto a qué estamos haciendo aquí en el condado, trabajando obviamente con todas estas agencias, trabajando en los centros de calentamiento, seguimos coordinando a través de nuestros centros, los centros de organizaciones sin ánimo de lucro de la ciudad. Los edificios del condado van a estar cerrados miércoles y jueves. De las vacunas, el Departamento de Salud Público va a contactar a las personas que tenían cita esta semana para reagendarlos. Hay una oportunidad de tal vez poder administrar la segunda dosis a ciertas personas el viernes. El departamento contactará a aquellas personas. Si las personas no pueden llegar, se les agendará en otro momento. No se preocupen que van a perder su espacio en la lista de espera. Si han sido seleccionados, se les va a reagendar. Tal vez también está la posibilidad de que podamos administrar pruebas el viernes, pero eso lo avisaremos. Finalmente, seguimos coordinando con los líderes a través de la región, especialmente los supermercados, otras jurisdicciones, los líderes a nivel estatal y federal. Una nota acerca de los incendios. Han habido muchísimas alarmas el día de hoy, se ha multiplicado la cantidad de alarmas. Eso es causado por los apagones. Entonces, si hay un incendio, si hay una alarma pues que suena, preste atención, recuerde que hay que salir para no ponerse en peligro tanto usted como a su familia. Sé que las cosas no se ven bien, no tenemos todavía pues una nota muy positiva, pero vamos a salir de esto. Una luz que podemos ver al final del túnel es que viene un clima muy bonito. Este fin de semana, entrada la otra semana, entonces es un clima bonito. Aquí estaremos toda la noche trabajando. Hay muchos trabajadores profesionales dedicados a protegerlo. Están aquí, no se han ido, están comprometidos con ustedes, con su seguridad. Ayúdenos también, cuidado con este monóxido de carbono. Es un reto grande y no queremos que más gente pierda la vida. Entonces, muchas gracias. Seguimos adelante. We'll hear from Dr. Prater, emergency room physician at Memorial Hermann.
Thank you, Judge, for inviting me. Fellow Houstonians, my name is Samuel Prater, and I'm an emergency medicine physician at McGovern Medical School at UT Health, and I work at Memorial Hermann in the Texas Medical Center. And Judge Hidalgo is right. In no uncertain terms, this is a public health disaster and a public health emergency. And I'm speaking to you about a critically important public health notice about carbon monoxide poisoning. Over the last 24 hours, our hospital and the Med Center has seen a significant increases in cases of accidental carbon monoxide poisoning. As Judge Hidalgo explained, it's a gas that you can't see, that you can't smell, so you don't know that you're being poisoned. When you're unknowingly poisoned and left untreated, carbon monoxide deprives your body of oxygen and can result in permanent brain damage and even death. Symptoms are usually just a mild headache to start, maybe some mild nausea, mild fatigue, generalized weakness. As the levels increase, you get a more severe headache, very severe vomiting, you become confused, folks even lose consciousness and sometimes progress to coma. It usually occurs through exposure to smoke inside of a house fire. But what we've been seeing over the last 24 hours during this dangerous winter event and the prolonged power outages is a striking increase in the number of cases related to improper heating sources. For example, we're seeing carbon monoxide poisoning of entire families from indoor use of generators. The generators were either placed inside the house or inside an adjacent garage or close to an adjacent window. We're seeing charcoal grills, campfire stoves, other gasoline and charcoal burning devices that are being used to warm the house from the inside, resulting in poisoning of the entire family. Under no circumstances should any grill, barbecue pit, campfire stove be used inside the house, and generators should never be operated indoors, inside an adjacent garage, or adjacent to windows. Additionally, never run your vehicle inside your car, inside your garage and then get inside that vehicle in an attempt to get warm. Finally, if you don't have a functioning carbon monoxide detector, get one and make sure you have extra batteries. If you think you or a loved one has become ill from carbon monoxide poisoning, first thing you need to do is get outside to fresh air and then seek care at your nearest emergency center or call 911. Thank you, be safe and stay warm.
Thank you, Judge, for your continued leadership during this event. And more importantly, thank you to the more than 2.6 million homes and businesses that we have the privilege to serve for your patience as we all wait for the generation companies to get their generation facilities back online so we can continue to power Harris County and the greater Houston area. Judge Hidalgo gave you the current statistics of outages. Let me cover three things briefly with you. Number one, what we've been doing today as we wait for that generation to come back online and what you can expect. Number two, I want to stress again conservation. And then number three, I'll talk to you about where you can get more frequent updates on information as we get it. So number one, what have we been doing today? So we still don't have sufficient generation from the power generation companies to go to the rolling outages that we all may have expected to occur during this event, where they last from 15 minutes to an hour and they rotate around our system. We still don't have the ability to do that. There's not sufficient generation. So what we have been doing is, as we have the power on the system to do so, we have been transferring outages around our system. Many of you have experienced that starting around midnight last night and continuing throughout the day today. We've been focusing on those customers who have bared the burden of this event from the beginning, starting at about 1:30 a.m. yesterday, and working through the list to transfer those outages to people who haven't yet sustained those outages. Let me be clear though, that is not the kind of rolling outages that we had expected. So you shouldn't expect those outages to be short in duration. We are transferring sustained outages across our system as we have the power to do so, which is important. We may not always have the power to do that. So what should you expect? Whether you have power or not, as we sit here right now, you should plan as if you may have sustained outages until this generation shortfall is over. And let me stress that. It's not until it gets warmer. It's until this generation shortfall is over, which could be a number of days. Second, let me talk about conservation again. The judge and I talked about that yesterday. Let me stress the importance of conservation. Every unit of power that you don't use helps one of your fellow Harris County citizens keep their power. There is nothing too small that you can do. When you have 2.6 million homes and businesses, a small effort by everybody that has the power at this time to conserve makes a big difference. And let me also be clear that I'm not talking only to residential customers. talking to business owners as well. We can all pitch in, as we're used to do, Texans helping Texans, so that we don't have to take more customers offline. Third, let me just briefly mention that we expect to issue a public press release every morning going forward, giving you the information that we know when we know it. You can also look at our website, centerpointenergy.com, for more frequent updates, as well as through social media. We may not have perfect information from the power generation companies that provide the power to us to get to you, but we are committed to giving you the information that we do have so that you know that. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you. Chief Christensen.
Good afternoon. I know we've heard a lot from Judge Hidalgo and Dr. Prater about carbon monoxide. And what I'm going to ask of you today, and those of you viewing this, remember, if you're viewing this, you probably have power. But we have a lot of our families, our friends, and our neighbors, and all of Harris County, that is our family. What I'm going to ask you to do is, if you can text your family members, your friends, if you can retweet, take your Facebook and reshare, use Nextdoor. We have to get the message out. People are dying. We are losing our family members to carbon monoxide poisoning. So whatever you can do to help us spread that word, we need you. We need you to come together now. In addition, Judge Hidalgo talked about the increase of house fires. We're very concerned about that. As power comes back on, you're going to see a surge in some of the electrical items you have in your house. Please go around, unplug your TVs, unplug those things that right now you're not able to use, so that when that power starts coming back on, you don't have that surge. Again, we cannot stress enough. Keep the grills, the generators away from the eaves, away from windows. Even if you have it outside, that can come up through the house. In addition, you're always going to hear me say, have a plan to escape. If you were to have a fire in your house, make sure you know 2 ways out. Make sure you have a meeting place for your family. But what I can't stress more than anything right now is, please check on your friends, family, neighbors, use text, social media. Let's get the word out. Let's save each other from this carbon monoxide poisoning, the incident within the incident, and we will get through this. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeff Bubbles.
All right, so as we talked about yesterday, this is kind of a three-pronged event for us. So we've had the first winter storm, we had the extreme cold last night that had resulted in all the infrastructure issues, and the final third part of this is going to be tonight and into tomorrow, which is the second winter storm, and we are looking for significant amounts of ice accumulation as we go into later this evening, starting anywhere between 9 and midnight over the area, and then continuing through about 9 or 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. We are expecting most of the county to be below freezing, not as cold in the southern and southeastern parts of the county, but colder, upper 20s or so in the north and western parts of the county. And so the greatest amounts of ice that we are expecting tonight will be north of I-10 and really out in the Katy, Cypress, Tomball, Magnolia, Waller, Hockley, Spring, Aldine, Greens Point, Huffman, Klein, and Kingwood areas. Those are the areas we're most concerned about, that northern and northwestern part of the county. We could see enough ice accumulation tonight, anywhere from 1/10 to 1/4, maybe even 1/3 of an inch, to result in some damage to tree limbs sagging or falling, and also accumulations on the power lines, which could result in infrastructure damage to the power system, and unfortunately additional strain and power loss on the system. So we'll just have to see exactly where that freezing line sets up. Obviously, with ice, travel is going to be hazardous, as it has been for the last couple of days. Just know when you wake up in the morning, unlike Monday morning when you woke up and it was all white outside, it's not going to be white in the morning. So don't think it didn't happen. Ice is clear, so it's going to look pretty much like it looks now. Do not get in your car and travel. Stay where you're at until about mid to late morning, when the freezing line moves to the north and the ice begins to melt. And then we should gradually come out of this, warmer and warmer each day. We'll still go below freezing on Wednesday night into Thursday morning, and we could still have some ice issues. But after that, we warm up and pull out of this historic Arctic outbreak. Judge.
Thank you. We'll take questions.
I had a couple questions for Jason, actually. Jason, could you explain how CenterPoint chooses which circuits to shut down, and what discretion do you have?
Sure. So we got this question just before I came on, and I think we've put the subject matter experts on that question to answer it for you. So I would expect you to get that information shortly. At a high level, when we get told by ERCOT to take customers offline, we get sometimes less notice than it took me to give my prepared remarks earlier, and we have to use relatively blunt force to bring usage down immediately. So we have to comply with those directives in order to keep the entire grid functioning. I understand that it's never good for a customer to lose power, certainly with no notice, but we're given that short notice as well in order to comply with the orders from ERCOT.
And you said it's still too unsafe to move the rotating averages. Right now you have 1.2 million customers. At what point will you have enough electricity to start that rolling? What's the sweet spot you're looking for?
Sure. So in terms of timing, I can't tell you, but in terms of what we need, it's significant additional generation from what we have right now. I wouldn't expect that to occur in the next 24 hours. As Judge Hidalgo mentioned, we can hope that it does, but we shouldn't plan as if it will.
This morning, Mayor Turner said that ERCOT told him that they'd be generating enough to put perhaps 400,000 customers back on. Have you been a part of that? And how many customers have you done as a result of that?
Sure. So this continues to be a fluid event where you see generation come online and then you see other generation go offline, which is why our customer outage numbers have been moving between about 1 million to 1.4 million. So just because additional generation comes online doesn't mean that there's offsetting generation that comes offline very shortly thereafter. We saw that specifically yesterday. I think when I spoke to you yesterday, we had just brought on a couple 100,000 additional customers. Shortly after this press conference ended, generation had reduced somewhere else on the grid, and we had to bring down about the same number of customers. So what we need is continued, sustained net generation gains, not one-time generation gains that are simply offset by losses somewhere else.